Hey, welcome to Bear Mountain today. Well, it's been a few weeks since we did our last video. We've kind of been busy with a lot of things around the farm. Kind of took us away from getting back to our regular video schedule. But today I thought we would talk about tomatoes. We are a little bit behind in getting our tomato plants in. We did get them started a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, and probably the optimum time for planting them would have been about a week and a half ago. But our weather has been very unsettled. It's been cool, and so we decided to leave them growing on in the pots a little bit longer. Most of our tomatoes that we're raising this year are what are called indeterminates. We also have determinates. We'll talk about the difference on these things as we go through the video today and show you how we're going to trellis these guys up. Okay, this is kind of an example of what happens when you start things too early and they have to stay potted up maybe longer than they should have. We should have known, from years and experience, that you really can't get tomato plants outside in the ground around here in the western part of Oregon until Memorial Day weekend. It's usually after this point it's the safest. Your nighttime temperatures are typically above 50. And this last 3 weeks we've had more nights in the 40s, some as low as in the high 30s, and daytime temperatures that were mid 50s to mid 60s with very few nice sunny warm days. So we also were wetter than probably we have been in quite some time. So we got
in May.
Yeah, we kind of got suckered into starting these things too early. These plants were seeded on the 18th of March, and we potted them up probably about probably two and a half, 3 weeks after they germinated in a 6-pack.
There was a video on that.
And I think we did a video on that, and they clearly are ready to transplant. Now, some of the things that are going on here, as you may notice, like some of the leaves are yellowed. Now, these doesn't mean that these plants are shot. They will recover. But the key to the growing of the plant is really from about here up. So if you see a leaf like this, it doesn't really giving them much photosynthesis anymore. We're just going to bust those guys off, and any branches, because when we plant, we're going to plant deep. We're going to plant up to here with the whole idea that this stem is going to produce more roots in addition to the roots that are stuck in the pot now. So I'll just give you an example of what this probably looks like. You can see it's pretty much filled the pot up. So this one here is a Roma type tomato for paste. It's called speckled Roman, and I'm not sure, is this an indeterminate or determinate?
I'd have to look that
I'll
up.
have to look it up. But most of our Romas, I think we've got a couple of varieties. I know Amish paste is a determinate, meaning that a determinate doesn't continue to grow and grow and grow until frost.
It sets fruit all at once, with the idea that if you're making tomato paste or tomato sauce, you have a lot of fruit, and tomatoes are a fruit, to work with all at once. You don't have to go, I got a couple here and a couple there. It will produce enough to make canning tomato sauce worthwhile. So they give their all to do the fruit all at once, and then they kind of start to die back. They may set a little bit more fruit on it, but their biggest production will be all at once. Well, indeterminate, or also called vining tomatoes, their idea is to grow until something kills them. You pull them out, or the frost takes them out.
Yeah, and typically an indeterminate tomato is grown on a trellis or some kind of support system that enables it to reach. Usually you train it to get up to about 6 to 8 feet. And you also have to do quite a bit of pruning on an indeterminate over time to kind of keep it in control. Otherwise it will produce branches all over the place.
And tear your trellis
and tear
down.
your trellis down. So you got to kind of keep up on it. But they also typically are the most flavorful tomatoes,
Right.
because the tomatoes are going to come on later in the season,
Right.
and they're typically going to have a lot higher sugar sweetness content. So you're going to get that really old-fashioned tomato flavor, particularly if you're raising ones that are heirloom varieties.
Which a lot of these are.
Right. We have early Moscovich, which is an heirloom, and as a slicer,
Slicer Nepal.
and Nepal is another one. What do we got over here?
That's Moskowitz and Nepal.
Okay, in Nepal, right. And then we also have
These
our cherry tomatoes.
these are black cherry.
They're a dark red cherry.
Right.
It's almost black at
Almost
the
black.
top, and those are really prolific. We didn't grow any golds this year. We've done the golden ones in the past, and
Which are really sweet.
which are very sweet.
They're like eating candy in the garden.
Yeah. And there's also varieties we've raised in the past too that were called grape tomatoes, and the reason behind that is they kind of come on in a little bunch. They're like a cherry tomato, they kind of come on in a little bunch like grapes. Some of them are pear-shaped, and some of them are round. So those are all kind of different things that we've done in the past. This year we're focusing in on trying to get enough paste tomatoes to put up things for this winter. You know,
Tomato sauce.
tomato sauces, paste, maybe even make some of our own ketchup. Those sorts of
Salsa.
things. Salsa, yep. And
Diced tomatoes. We
dry
use lots.
tomatoes, we're going to take a lot of these guys that are your big heirloom, and we'll be drying those too to also use in cooking
And we're also going to save seeds.
and save seed. These are all non-hybrid, and
I
so
think
that's
so.
kind of
Yeah.
the not F1s, so they will be true. Tomatoes are self-pollinating, so it's not a big deal about, you know, whether you have one planted next to another. They don't tend to cross unless you specifically try to make them do that. So the seeds will be true, and that'll be the other big thing out of it. So you won't have to buy seeds of these guys again. So that'll be pretty cool. Okay, we got the tomato plants all slicked up and ready for planting. Now we're going to start putting in the trellis. We're going to use what's called the Florida weave method, which means that between strong stakes that we're going to be taking twine, like baling twine, and weaving it around. Think of it as two strands and the tomato growing in between the two strands. The strands are going to be tightened very tightly to these 10-foot T-posts, which we've driven in the ground 2 feet. So it's going to give us an 8-foot overall growth, basically creating a wall of tomatoes is the theory behind it. And thank you, Callie, for interjecting that. I forgot that part. But what we're going to use to drive these posts in, this is a T-post driver. You can get these at any farm supply place if you're doing a lot of fencing, or maybe you got a neighbor who's got one. Sure beats using a sledgehammer over your head. And as you can see, this thing is 10 foot in the ground, just sticking out. I got it kind of sort of put in maybe about 8 inches just to kind of give it, you know, a little bit of getting started with. So I'm going to be banging that baby in until it's about the height of the ladder, which is 8 foot. Now we spaced these guys every approximately 5.5 feet apart. Because as these tomato plants grow, even with pruning, they'll tend to get quite heavy, especially when they get fruit on them. So we're going to make certain that we have a lot of strength. So let's get these guys pounded in. All right, so we got our T-posts in for the structure. These were all 10-foot T-posts, and we pounded them into the ground about 2 feet. So we have 8 foot above. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be using the Florida weave technique, which we'll demonstrate in another video coming up as soon as these guys reach about this tall, which is about a foot and a half. And then we'll start trellising these guys using baling twine and a weaving type thing. And it'll be kind of a cool video when we show that. So what's left now to do is we laid out the plants. We've got 5 different varieties of tomatoes, and even though if some are determinate or indeterminate, you can use the same method of the Florida weave to basically keep it up. What it means is if it's a determinate tomato, that it's only going to get so ultimately tall, but your weave or trellising system will keep it off the ground, so the fruits that it does make will be, they won't be laying on the ground and getting other problems with slugs and stuff like that. We space these plants because we are going to be intensely growing them on a trellising system and pruning them. They're spaced about 18 inches apart, 18 to 20 inch. And so that means in this area that's approximately an L shape, it's about 32 lineal feet when it wraps around. And so we have about 23 to 24 plants in here. It's going to be a lot of tomatoes.
For 2 people.
Well, we're going to put up a lot, so
We're
that's
going to
gonna be
make
cool.
ketchup and
Right.
sauce and salsa.
And, yeah, by the time we get into August, this thing is going to be a pretty cool wall of tomatoes.
Or the deer will found it.
Shh, no.
Sorry.
So how we plant? Well, what we did is we trimmed off the leaves that were the least healthy and weren't really photosynthesizing anymore. And we're going to plant this guy up to the first leaf on each of these. I might even take this one off too, just to give it a little more root space. So we'll plant up to here. And so that'll leave about 6 to 8 inches above the ground. And the stem will form roots. And it'll take probably a couple of weeks for these guys to really kind of get, growing and rocking and rolling. And thank you.
Hi, Web.
I guess he's saying it's okie dokie. Planting's pretty simple. We're just going to be digging this into the ground here. This is kind of got some heavy duty mulches in it, some of it a little woody, so I just got to kind of move it aside a little bit. Sometimes I got more wood in here than I think. It's mostly rotted wood. Now, some people may think, okay, what about blossom end rot and putting calcium in the hole? Normally, if I wasn't using K&F, I would do that. I would put like a bone meal in the hole, like a handful of it, and that just helps give the plant some extra calcium. But I'm going to be treating these guys pretty much on a weekly basis with a very diluted calcium phosphate solution. That's part of the K&F, Korean Natural Farming, and that is going to give it enough calcium plus phosphorus as it grows to. I got to get this a little deeper. I probably could have planted that a little deeper, but I'm thinking that's pretty good. And that's about it. And we'll just go through and do that with each of the 25. What are you doing, cat? Okay, thank you. Each of the 23 plants that we got laid out here, and probably also too, I'm going to be getting another load of urban compost, and probably in a week or two, I'm going to put just a slight top dressing on the front. We also have a lot of extra space here. While these plants are small, what we're going to do is we're going to be putting in lettuce in the front. So we've got our drip irrigation lines, and we can put lettuce in the front that'll give us another crop. So we'll be able to get kind of 2 things out of the same space. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching today. Kitty cat is trying to steal the show. Just wanted to show you how we're starting out the tomato project. And again, these guys look a little, they're not as green as we'd want them, but we'll get them fertilized up here. We'll get some warm weather. These guys are going to green up real fast. So thanks for watching today, and be sure to subscribe if you hadn't. Check out our other videos. Also too, stop by our Instagram page, and want you guys all to have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.